The Persian Gulf is bracing for the rumble of American firepower once again. With nuclear talks with Iran hanging in the balance, Washington is reportedly preparing a second aircraft carrier strike group for possible deployment. No official order, but the signal is loud and clear. Fighter jets, warships, a floating show of force. Diplomacy may still be in play, but so is overwhelming power. The United States is preparing for a possible major escalation in the Middle East. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon has instructed a second aircraft carrier strike group to get ready for potential deployment towards the region. The move comes as Washington intensifies pressure on Tehran amid fragile nuclear negotiations. 3 US officials told the newspaper that the preparations are part of a contingency plan in case diplomatic efforts collapse. President Donald Trump has not yet issued a formal deployment order, and officials stress that plans could still change. But one source indicated that such an order could come in a matter of hours. The USS George H.W. Bush, currently completing training exercises off the coast of Virginia, is reportedly among the carriers being readied. If deployed, it would join the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is already operating in the region as part of a broader US military buildup that includes additional warships, air defenses, and fighter aircraft. President Trump publicly acknowledged he is considering sending another carrier. "We have an armada that is heading there, and another one might be going," he said, adding that Washington would have to do something very tough if negotiations fail. Behind closed doors, Trump also met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House to discuss Iran. While Trump says he prefers a negotiated agreement, uncertainty surrounds the next round of indirect talks. US and Iranian officials met in Oman last week, their first negotiation since last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities.
As Washington and Tehran cautiously explore a possible deal, Turkey is issuing a stark warning. Widen the talks and the region could slide into another war. At the same time, the White House says another option remains on the table. With missiles, sanctions, and military threats looming, diplomacy is walking a razor's edge. A fragile diplomatic opening between the United States and Tehran is taking shape, but the path forward is filled with landmines. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan says both Washington and Tehran appear willing to compromise to reach a nuclear agreement. Yet he warns that expanding negotiations to include Iran's ballistic missile program could risk nothing but another war. In an interview with the Financial Times, Fidan described a narrow window for progress. He said it is positive that the United States appears ready to tolerate Iranian uranium enrichment within clearly defined boundaries. According to Fidan, Tehran now recognizes it needs an agreement, while Washington understands Iran has what he called certain limits. His message, forcing the issue beyond the nuclear file, could shatter diplomacy. Speaking earlier to Turkey's CNN Turk, Fidan reiterated Ankara's opposition to any intervention in Iran. The region, he said, cannot withstand another war. He also dismissed the prospect of regime change, even in the event of conflict, arguing that while infrastructure could be damaged, the political system itself would likely endure.
The Iran issue is genuinely occupying a significant portion of our agenda these days. The region simply cannot endure another new war breaking out there. Our president is also demonstrating the utmost sensitivity regarding this matter. Therefore, we intend to utilize every possible means to prevent a potential war. So what's important for us is that as these discussions are moving towards a certain concrete and tangible result, we don't gradually distance ourselves from the looming threat of war, you see. Currently, at least, there doesn't seem to be any immediate threat of war. In Iran, I mean, I don't want to elaborate on specific scenarios, but an airstrike or anything else won't change the regime. We don't want to see dramatic changes that would alter the existing balance. I mean, there is a balance of power, and its disruption would seriously undermine the spirit of cooperation in the region. Secondly, some countries like Iran, who interpret this situation differently and have other problems, nuclear weapons,
it makes them try to become its owner.
It will drag us in, and we too might involuntarily have to participate in the same race. Just 12 days before that, during the June war, one night we received a phone call from Marco Rubio. He said, tell the Iranians that within the next few hours, absolutely anything could happen.
Right.
Yes.
So Iran is making such preparations. America is also making preparations.
When I spoke with my Iranian colleague that very night, he was utterly astonished, asking, yeah, how on earth could such a thing possibly happen? And he explained we had already given the appointment date for Sunday, specifically to meet in Oman. Of course, the crucial point here is that this time the ones who were actually meeting were Americans, but the ones who carried out the strike were Israelis.
But Washington is signaling that time may not be unlimited. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said there is another option on the table if negotiations fail to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The remark underscores that military alternatives have not been ruled out.
At this point, how confident are you in going the diplomatic route? Do you think that is still going to be successful, or are we're leaning more towards a military strike?
Well, look, the president's told his entire senior team that we should be trying to cut a deal that ensures the Iranians don't have a nuclear weapon. But if we can't cut that deal, then there's another option on the table. So I think the president's going to continue to preserve his options. He's going to have a lot of options because we have the most powerful military in the world. But until the president tells us to stop, we're going to engage in these conversations and try to reach a good outcome through negotiation.
Would you like to see regime change in Iran? And what would, if the regime falls, what comes next?
Well, look, I mean, if the Iranian people want to overthrow the regime, that's up to the Iranian people. What we're focused on right now is the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That's been the focus of the president's policy, even going back to the first administration. I'll take one more question.
Tehran, for its part, has drawn its own red lines. Iranian officials have warned that any attack, particularly from Israel, would change the entire question and trigger what they describe as a crushing response to military aggression from anyone. So the equation now is stark. A potential nuclear compromise is within reach, but broaden the scope to missiles, escalate the rhetoric, or miscalculate the timing, and the diplomatic track could collapse. With regional tensions already high, every word from Ankara, Washington, and Tehran carries weight.
The meeting that took place in Moscow, which was not by any means a particularly lengthy meeting, it was, to be precise, only a half-day session. Indeed, that's how it was. From our point of view, this was primarily for the purpose of assessment. The seriousness of the other side and how the path would continue. So this meeting primarily focused on generalities. Our principal positions are clear, our demand. The interests of the Iranian nation are secured in accordance with international principles. This is based on the Non-Proliferation Treaty and the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Therefore, regarding the specific and intricate details of this matter, we will have to patiently wait and carefully observe the exact manner in which this entire diplomatic process will be conducted and unfold in its subsequent stages. We will have, well, look, you've just spoken about a hypothesis that fundamentally alters the entire nature of the problem. It is quite natural that the Islamic Republic of Iran, should it be subjected to military aggression from any quarter, will undoubtedly deliver a devastating and decisive response. Furthermore, our experience shows that any action taken by the Zionist regime cannot possibly happen without American coordination and cooperation. Therefore, if such wickedness occurs, Iran's response will certainly be regret-inducing.
I'm now heading to the United States for my 7th trip to meet with President Trump ever since he was elected for his 2nd term in office. This, of course, does not include his truly unforgettable visit to Israel and his significant speech delivered in the Knesset. I believe that these things reflect the unique connection and the truly exceptional relationship that we have with the United States, and for me personally, with the President, and for the State of Israel with the United States, something that has been unprecedented in our entire history now. During this trip, we will be discussing a range of important subjects, Gaza and the wider regional context, but certainly our primary focus will be the ongoing negotiations with Iran. I will present to the President our understanding of the principles for negotiations. These are important principles, in my view, not only for Israel, but for everyone in the world who desires peace and security in the Middle East.